So there's a couple reasons to mesh a grill. You might be wanting to add some more aggressive or rugged aesthetics, or to better protect whatever's exposed behind it from trail rocks and highway bugs. Or in my case, a combination of both and hiding this new silver condenser. And I think I found the best way to install grill mesh on a 97 and up Jeep Cherokee XJ, and in this video I'll show you how to do that without sacrificing a factory look or damaging the grill in the process, and making it very easy. I'll start with the mesh I used, the holes I fell into so you don't have to, and every step to achieve the perfect final product that I did. Feel free to use the timestamps and links below for the tools and materials I used in this video, and I'll cover all it takes for an ideal DIY install. So let's get into it. So I've got this brand new silver condenser that was bound to start looking like a first floor city townhouse window unit in a short time if I didn't do something about it. And I wasn't vibing with how it looked showing through the grill, almost like an intercooler would, and that's a ricey check this off-road toaster cannot cash. I wanted to take a page from the 5.9 Grills book, but execute it in a way that augmented the XJ's OEM form and function while making it look factory, like a piercing below the belt. I'm big on subtleties that only a select few will actually notice and appreciate. An Easter egg, if you will, that rewards the observant and the one who hid it. Well, I ordered this sheet of understated fine mesh for its hiding and protective qualities. It came in a tight roll, and since it's so fine and less forgiving than mesh with more spacing, I thought I had to get this stuff X-axis flat before doing anything, so I started to think. I stuck it under this folding table for a night, which didn't do jack, so I started heating it up with the Better Half's fancy hair dryer to make it more pliable and easier to flatten. The finer the mesh, the tougher it'll be to manipulate, and more visible leftover waves will be when it's installed, and I was starting to lose patience with this one.
You hope I'll make it easy and you just drop dead, don't you? Well, I won't. So either kill me or let me go.
Once it was warmed up again, I put every heavy thing on it I could find in the asbestos dungeon we call our basement and waited another day. My tactics weren't working and this mesh was really starting to get to me.
I don't know what you think you're doing here, but trust me, this line of work doesn't suit you.
So I should just let you go then? Just unlock you and adios, huh?
I don't see what real choice you have. If it's between that and cold-blooded murder. Besides, your real problem's sitting upstairs.
Now I needed a heat gun in general anyway, so no harm no foul, but I heated this stuff within a few degrees of a liquid state, and since the passive press approach to flattening it wasn't working, I took a more active one. I started ironing the mesh with a couple flat toolboxes full of heavy stuff and pressed and rolled it like pizza dough as I blasted it with more heat. Metal has memory, and if you don't manipulate or train it out effectively, it'll just return to its former ways like my ex from high school. After beating this mesh up for a half hour, I let it cool overnight under some more heavy stuff. Last-ditch effort was heating it back up and clamping it to a workbench with the might of a god, but I was just wasting time at this point. Whether this mesh actually needed to be flat or not is a question maybe one of you can answer, but I bought this pre-flattened mesh I found I liked better and actually installed. It had an identical pattern, but spaced slightly wider, which I found I preferred, and it's also better for airflow, especially for our 4.0s that would really appreciate that. Sections of mesh will sit behind each grill slot, and since we need heat to manipulate it effectively and do it all 7 times, I devised a way to make this turnkey and to eliminate the risk of melting or breaking the plastic behind your grill if we were to use it as a work surface. So I first made a stencil to recreate the exact footprint of one of the slots. In other words, we're taking a 2-dimensional cast of where the mesh will actually be sitting. Once you've got that cut to size, get another piece of cardboard and use the first one to cut it so it's around an inch larger on all 4 sides. This piece will be the template we'll use to cut adequate sections of mesh so there's enough to wrap around the lip we'll be adhering it to. We get 2 sections per piece here, and at 3 pieces per pack, we need 2 packs of this mesh for a whole grill, with some extra in case you botch anything. Now that we have both stencils, we'll use the one that matches the grill opening to make a sturdy wooden surface that we'll use to bend, form, and trim the mesh into the exact shape we need it to be repetitiously, without subjecting our grill to that abuse. Cut a piece of flat wood and get a hold of a Dremel. We'll be mounting this in a vise, so this mending plate worked for me to attach to the wooden piece. I picked up this sheet metal bending tool that made making straight bends and adjustments much easier. And I used it to bend the piece of metal in a vise about 90 degrees. And I used the template I made that mimics the grill slot opening to trim the wood to match that footprint. A couple screws later, the Meshinator was born, and it'll be your best friend throughout this process. Before you start cutting your mesh, make sure you orient it so the pattern's aligned the way that you want it uniformly throughout the pieces that you make. This mattered with this mesh, so always, before cutting and bending it, make sure the side you want showing is pointing downward in our case. Now, a good pair of tin snips would be okay for less fine mesh, but a Dremel was ideal for mine, and it'll pay off for when we cut sections out for the grill's mounting screws later on. Once a piece is cut, I put it on the Meshinator and heat the mesh in the areas we'll be bending to keep the rest from deforming as much when we do. Making perpendicular notches next to the corners like this helped the sides bend individually. Just kind of work the warm metal with your tools and hands until it looks something like this, and trim the protruding folds with tin snips or wire cutters, and you can always go back to this step after you test fit to see what else needs trimming for clearance. The grill slots themselves have a slight curvature, so after you get it bent and trimmed, heat it up to medium heat and bring it right to the grill to start forming it around the edges, gently pressing the mesh to get that curve the grill has before it cools down. Now, there are a few sections that you'll need to notch out so they fit. There are 4 mounting screws that you'll need to clear after you get the mesh pieces shaped to the grill's curvature. I took a file and marked exactly where the cutouts needed to be and dremeled those sections out very carefully all the way to the edge of the mesh like this, and a Sharpie can help black over sheared edges if they end up showing. Now, with all sections cut, laid down, and trimmed with just enough wraparound for the adhesive to get a good enough hold on the sides, give each panel a few passes with the heat gun while it's away from the grill and tie it down with whatever you have while it's still warm to set that shape and keep it there for the adhesive. Once it's all tied down, this is a good time to test install the grill and see what trimming needs to be done. Aside from those mounting screws, you'll also want to clear the way for these tabs in the header panel where they might contact the mesh, and it might take some trial and error on your test fitting to pinpoint exactly where trimming's needed. And once everything fits, it's time for some strong, water resistant, won't rattle apart, and perfect for our use case. But in case you didn't know, I put everything I use in, on, and around my XJ and gather parts and gear fellow owners suggest in forums every day in my storefront below. I've been building this for years and so thrilled with how much it's helped folks get more out of their Cherokees. Using the description links to fill the gaps in your gear, or even just as inspo for what's next for your XJ, helps me out and keeps this party going. Before you get to gooping willy-nilly, wipe off the 25-year-old dirt from the surface, since that's what it'll need to adhere the best. Open a window too. You spend too much time above wet, fresh goop and you might start seeing shapes. You do not need 100% coverage for this. Even 50% is more than plenty. Just lay it down in straps in a few areas around the perimeter by using a chunk of cardboard as an applicator, making sure it's making contact with the mesh and the plastic. It'll creep down when it's wet, so start high and you can smooth it out for better curing. It'll look ugly now, a little less ugly later, but completely invisible since you won't see any of this when the grill is on. Now, I needed to know exactly when this would be ready to drive with, and our ChatGPT overlords not only put my mind at ease on Goop's heat resistance against our notoriously toasty engines, but gave it to me straight that I should really wait 24 hours before driving much on it. So with that, I set a timer and asked nicely for a work from home day the next morning. 21 hours, 45 minutes, and 55 seconds was my patient limit, so I started removing the ties and prepared for final install. Still had a good 9 hours before I had to drive anywhere, but mostly it just feels good to be bad, and dopamine flooded the reward centers of my brain as I undid the ties to get this show on the road. One more ocular pat down here, and the adhesive was in great shape, and another view of what sufficient coverage looks like. Now, if you have clearance issues on final install after the goop has dried and need to trim extra pieces of mesh, do not fret. Just use some heat to loosen the goop enough where it'll let go and let you bend up the side and lop anything off you need to with a wire cutter before re-gluing. But son of a gun, did the final product come out looking fan-f***ing-tastic. All those tactics in this video and the trial and error I didn't even include really paid off this time. The condenser's more hidden, it's much more protected, and we achieved that subtle OEM quality result that I love to go for. Maybe 10% of people will actually notice this in real life, probably even less. But you never know who's out there and who thinks you're great. Like the percentage of you that made it to this part of the video, and that's who all this effort's for. Anyway, I hope this helped, and please like, comment, and subscribe if it did. Using the links below and my Best of XJ Amazon storefront helps me keep this Jeep on the road and motivates me to keep this going. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.